Hola friends, just making sure my AirPods are turned up. Happy St. Patty's Day to everyone celebrating here in the US and all over the world. Sporting my green, got my green lights on, good to go. I know that there is a lot happening in the world that have us feeling weird, have us feeling angry, have us feeling very melancholy. And so I know that there's a lot to share, a lot I could share really that is on my heart and in my head. But specifically tonight, I just want to share my story of teaching over the pandemic year. Thanks for joining, and hi, make sure you wave as you come in. And if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below. Or if you're watching the replay, make sure to put hashtag replay and let me know what's on your heart as well. If you're like me, you've probably been seeing your Facebook memories or your Instagram memories, and there's so many things popping up that marked the start of the pandemic, right? And I knew that it would make me feel a certain kind of way. I didn't realize just how sad I would feel. And I've given myself permission to feel all the feels. And I will preface with this. I have been very blessed over the last year with my studio, with my teaching. I suffered minimal loss compared to what friends and colleagues have endured over the past year. And so I am counting my blessings and I'm very grateful. So when I do talk about any of the hardships, I'm not being ungrateful, I'm just being honest. I'm just sharing my story. And so maybe you'll hear this and find a little bit of relief knowing that you're not the only one. Maybe you'll hear something new that you might want to try in your studio or with your practice. Or maybe feel affirmed in what you're doing and say, nope, no thank you. I know what I'm doing, and that's awesome. You should be confident, assertive, in whatever practices are best for you. So I will say that the lovely Carrie Hardwick, one of my friends and colleagues from the Eastern Virginia coaching community, was going to join me this evening, but she had a family emergency to attend to. So Carrie, sending you my love and my prayers. So March 13th, 2020 was the last day I had students in my studio before the start of the pandemic. I remember, so I should say, I'd never taught online lessons before then. I had people approaching me from other states and areas, friends from all over the country, asking if I did it, and I never pursued it because I had a full schedule with my local students. So I didn't have time or room, to be honest, to even try it. But the year was going to bring something different. So my last 3 students of that Friday afternoon, I remember, they're all high schoolers. Oh, Mrs. Cartwright, Miss Melissa, we're not going to have school for the next 2 weeks. I was like, why? Well, because of the pandemic and the coronavirus. And I was like, oh, and I hadn't heard any news from my children's school yet, but I knew it was coming. So finished my last lesson. Immediately, I'm texting back and forth with Carrie and with other colleagues. What are you doing? What are you doing? And I thought, I just sent a communication text to my family, said, business as usual, wash your hands. If you're feeling sick, don't come to the studio next week. Little did I know, in 48 hours, everything would change. As we were doing more research, getting more news, our governor, was shutting schools down for everybody for at least the next 2 weeks. And so, like many of us, in a matter of 48 hours, I was learning how to Zoom. Never had Zoomed before. I was recording all as many of my vocal exercises on voice memo on my phone to upload to a Dropbox folder to be accessed. Okay, thankfully, a lot of these were already done. I already had this available to my students. But now it wasn't just, check the vocal exercises folder. Now there's a folder for each student because now they all have to use pre-recorded tracks if there's not a karaoke link available for the song that we're working on, right? I can't play for them live. And so it was a lot in a matter of 48 hours. And so here we go, communicating with my families that Monday. And I see students between Tuesday and Friday. So Monday is my planning day. It's my catch-up day. So you can imagine what that day looked like, not just for my studio, but then also as a parent, being on top of whatever the school was going to provide for children at home so that they could continue with their work. Wowzers, right? So, and thankfully the nature of my husband's job is that he can work from home as well. So all of us at home, like many of us found ourselves in, home office, home school, of some sort, and figuring it all out. Whew, it felt so scary. And it was just hurry up and do the thing. And that's what it felt like a lot for my students too. I remember students taking their lessons in the bathroom of their house because maybe for whatever reason, it had the strongest Wi-Fi signal, or it was the place where they could have privacy, right? Without somebody, another sibling, another family member interrupting their lesson. Good acoustics, by the way, in the bathroom. But I was like, oh my goodness, a voice lesson in the bathroom. Hey, if it works for you, it works for you. So I'm trying to think of just all of the funny, weird nuances of having to make that adjustment very, very fast. My studio space. So I teach from my home studio in a detached garage space. 5 months before the pandemic, I had water damage. I had a busted pipe and repairs were being made and they were delayed. Right before the pandemic started, I was about to reopen that studio space. I was in our attic den space that's right above where you see me right now. And so that's where I was seeing my students. And so there was so much excitement surrounding the reopening of the studio, until the pandemic. And so my Wi-Fi in my new studio space needed to also be, renovated or boosted. And that didn't happen for another few weeks too. Thankfully, I had a portable keyboard that I could take to my home office in our main living space where I had the strongest Wi-Fi signal. Made a makeshift studio and bada bing, bada boom, we're doing the thing, right? And so I'm wondering, if you watch this now or later, if you leave in the comments below, what's the quirkiest thing that you had to do? Maybe the quirkiest space you had to use in order to continue teaching your lessons if you'd never taught online before, right? And I must give 2 big shout outs. One to my friend Carrie Hardwick, who is also a Throw the Voice coach and has been teaching online, and Nikki Loney from the Full Voice podcast. Those 2 ladies were such huge resources for me in learning how to navigate these online teaching waters. So thank you, just for your input and your encouragement. Nikki, you may not even know, I think I commented and said, thank you so much, this is so great, because that podcast was a saving grace of how in the world do I do this? How do I do this? So I'm curious for you voice teachers, if you found yourself also rewriting your policies during the pandemic with your students. Now tuition was still the same. It was double the amount of work. I did not change anything. It was double the amount of preparation. But I did not change my rates. And I still remember colleagues reaching out, are you changing your rates? And I was like, no, no, I'm doing the double amount of work, and still serving my students and meeting them where they are. But I remember, again, because this was my first rodeo teaching online, that I became very strict with my makeup and cancellation policy. I have a pretty generous makeup policy, with the exception of a no call, no show. If you can't make it to your lesson, cool. I always have a day designated every month where people can sign up for a makeup lesson if they need to. I'm pretty nice about my makeup policy, but because everybody else too was stuck in their homes, there was no football practice to go to. There was nothing to go to. We were all home. So I remember saying, no makeup lessons unless you're actually physically sick and you cannot physically sing, obviously. But because it, in my mind, I thought it's just so easy. It's just so easy to just say, I don't feel like logging on to my lesson, right? And here you are having done all this work. So I became very strict with that. I finally let up, right, as things started to open up again and go back to my previous makeup lesson policy. But I know for me, I kind of cracked down. And I think it was out of protection for my time as well. And I really didn't have any violators per se. I have amazing families and students. Turnover, did I experience turnover in any of my students? Bare minimum. I mean, 1 or 2 students. And a lot of that wasn't necessarily because they were discouraged with anything I was doing, because I still have a good rapport with these students. It's just life happened. Life was happening for everybody. And so I knew that I was going to have singers, that this was either going to encourage them to stick with something that they knew was reliable and constant in a world that was ever changing and crazy, or those same pressures were probably going to push them to a point of needing to take a break, right? One family, military, had to move. The Wi-Fi connection in their home wasn't the best, so it was discouraging to log on and spend 10, 15 minutes of a 30-minute lesson navigating technical issues. Yeah, that'll definitely snuff out the flame, right? And another too, whose priority was she just needed to be a student first, right? And anything extracurricular just needed to be on the back burner so that she could take care of that. And so that's understandable, and my teaching approach, I've always been a champion, of course, for my students, and I value excellence, and I want to lovingly push my students to, I know that this may be a little uncomfortable, but I know you can do it, right? It was just a season of just being there. Like I said, being the one thing that they knew they could rely on every week at this time on this day. I know I'm going to have my voice lesson because I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I don't know if I'm going to get news of a family member getting sick, with this disease that, we were just learning about. And there was so much uncertainty and a lot of fear surrounding it because we fear the things, right, that we don't know or that we're not sure of. And so you can imagine, and I'm sure that lots of I would love to hear some of your just inspirational stories in the comments if you feel like sharing, some of those I'm here for you lessons, right? It almost became more therapeutic, right? In nature, we sang, but we definitely had moments of, let's just breathe together. Yeah. Let's just sing your favorite song right now. Let's just pull up a karaoke track. Let's just sing and remember why we love to sing, and how those moments became healing moments. And I remember hearing from some of my parents and some of my adult students, thanking me, or being grateful for something that they knew they could count on in a world that was just, again, changing all the time, getting news about the changing school schedule and getting news that kids were not going to return to the classroom for the rest of the year. Some of my students who take music classes, and those music teachers, God bless you, the ones that teach in the music classroom, having to adjust those lessons on the fly. But students who were missing those performance opportunities, right, that no longer were available, and still having an outlet in a private voice lesson to perform, right? To sing out loud, and to share their music. And so I remember one of the things I really missed, obviously, was singing at the same time with my student. You know, that's one, for me, that's one of the biggest joys in an in-person lesson, is accompanying. Once they learn their song, you know, adding some harmonies with them so that they can see. No, am I muted? Am I muted? Oh no, I must solve hello but sound mute. I must solve the problem. Oh no, wait a second. I've been just yapping. Can you hear me? Can everybody hear me? Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. Oh my goodness. No, can't hear me. Oh my. Okay, let's fix that. Okay, all right. Can you hear me now? Wow, I hope I didn't just spend the first 15 minutes on mute. Wowzers, okay. All right, so let me try to pick up where I left off. Let's see. Yes, what I missed, some of the things that I missed the most of singing with my students was being able to sing with them at the same time, right? Accompanying them on piano, you know, singing harmonies with them once they learned their song and they were really, really confident. And so I was like, I've got to find a way to still, you know, so we're good. Muted. No, it's not. Okay. Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you, Aurelia. Thank you for keeping me on track. I got to find a way to make music somehow with my students. And so I started doing something called songs with students, and it was just duets. It was also a chance for me to practice my video editing skills, because I think we can all agree, give me a thumbs up, hand wave, if out of the blue you turned into a video editor. We all had to learn how to video, you know, edit our videos, produce, you know, online recitals, all the things, you know, out of nowhere, okay? Especially if you didn't have any experience doing it before. And so, oh my goodness, that was another thing that I remember colleagues just texting and sending messages and one like, how do you do this? What software do you use for that? And learning all the YouTube videos of how to produce videos and performance videos with multiple people. And so, you know, that was work, but it was good work. It was fun work, fulfilling for me. Again, a chance to sing with singers and colleagues. And it was good practice for my spring recital last year. Many of us teachers were like treading these waters of Zoom recitals or a pre-produced recital, and doing that little project of songs with students, which was many little videos of splicing videos together, was great practice for that. Okay, so I decided to do a pre-recorded, pre-produced recital in the spring. Holy cow, hours of editing. I still remember a few tears of frustration on my part, some all-nighters trying to get things to look like they were in sync, especially doing those virtual choir videos, right? I didn't have the budget at the time to invest in like Logic Pro or Final Cut or any of the fancy schmancy video editing software. I had to use what came with my Mac, okay? And I remember I had this one video every time I was trying to produce at least 8 or 9 of my singers together. Every time I'd add a video file, boom, boom, export, it was just slowing everything down. I finally fixed it, got it to a place where it was presentable, but wow, talk about a huge learning curve there with video editing. And so summer came here in Virginia where I live. Some of the restrictions were starting to lift. And then came the time, okay, do I reopen my studio and start welcoming students in a safe fashion? And if so, how? What does that look like? Thankfully, in my studio space, I have a lobby and where my piano is to where there's plenty of room. There's probably 10 to 11 feet of space to work with. So I could have a singer, distantly, 6 feet away, socially distant. But then there was all this debate in our singing community about whether or not singing was even safe to do. And I know that there's different opinions out there. And it's better to err on the side of caution. But I was trying to find a way. I was thinking of my student who was doing her voice lesson in the bathroom because her older siblings would not leave her alone. They were college students trying to study. That was the only place where she was allowed to practice and do her lesson with not the best Wi-Fi, okay? So I figured it out. Got me a face shield that I still use to this day. I take temperatures, and my families are well aware, produced a video with instructions for them of, what's expected when they come, what cannot happen before they come, right? There's any of the following symptoms at the time, check temperatures, please don't show up. We can do an online lesson or take a makeup lesson, right? And so thankfully, the families that were like, you know what? We're going to continue virtual lessons. Cool. The ones that have come have been amazing. There's been, I think I only had 2 incidences where, temperature readings were really weird or really high and I had to send people home. I had to send people away for a makeup lesson. And thankfully everybody's been respectful even in a situation where that was happening. So it has worked for me. Thank goodness. But I know that's not necessarily the case for some of you who maybe who have a smaller space and continue to teach online. Being on this side of it now and looking back at how nervous I was, to tread the online waters, obviously you live and learn, right? You live and learn. You continue to hear from colleagues who have amazing careers teaching online. And like I said before, when I started, I had friends reaching out to me from all over the nation, asking if I taught online. And I just say no, I just closed that door. Like I said, my schedule was full and there wasn't necessarily a need for it. And now I'm so thankful to say that yay, I am seeing students, across state lines and making connections with teachers and colleagues and students from other parts of the country and internationally as well. And I know that we are so eager to experience live performances again all together in one space, right? Where we can feel the music live and see those performers live. But I think, we obviously too have experienced the joy and blessing of connections that I'm not sure would have happened had the pandemic not happened. I'm not sure that this digital connection, that we're experiencing, that there would be such an openness to connect because we are so desperate for connection, right? And so I'm so grateful and thankful to say that that's something, that has inspired me in terms of how I brand my business and my studio and my teaching philosophy to be able to access, more singers or songwriters who want encouragement. And thankful for Instagram, that's allowed me to do that. Thankful for tools like Zoom, where I can, sing with my students in the best way that we know how. One thing too that I have seen growth in my students with having to take an online lesson, and I remember Nikki from the Full Voice mentioning this too. I didn't realize how much I was coddling my students in their pitch correction. What I mean is I'd rescue them right away. Ding, 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 play the melody on the piano, right? And once the ability to sing and play simultaneously was taken away because of a Zoom lesson or FaceTime, all of a sudden their ears had to work a little harder, right? And oh my goodness, I still remember, like, that would make me sweaty before I'd hop on those lessons with the students that I was working with at the time on pitch correction. And let me tell you, they rose to the occasion. They rose to the occasion because they no longer had me as a crutch. I didn't realize that I was enabling that, every time I jump in to rescue and play the melody. And so we obviously do a lot of sing-song back and forth, which is ear training. Okay, let's just call it what it is. It's ear training, play the melody, sing that back to me. And it exercises the ear, the brain, the mind connection a lot quicker than I realized. And so I will definitely say, I hope we can all say that we've become better teachers for it too, right? In areas of, maybe we're not going to do it like this anymore. Maybe, maybe they need to be challenged in this way so that, right, we start seeing those results a little quicker. So I know that was a big light bulb moment for me. I don't know, what were some of your light bulb moments too with teaching online, especially in your music lessons of, okay, maybe we don't have that one figured out like I thought we did, right? So I know for me, like with group numbers, we've got another spring recital coming up. So I not only made a track that had all the harmonies, all the parts, but then creating tracks that have the melody, the harmony, so that they can zero in and practice too, right? I've also allowed them to mute themselves so that they can sing along to me in real time, right? Especially with learning this group number that's coming up, just for the sake of repetition. And then I have them unmute, say, okay, sing back to me. So those are tools that I'm finding that I'll definitely keep using, obviously, because I'll say that if I had to give you percentages, like 65% of my student body right now is still virtual, while the remaining see me in studio. And it's so easy to hop on an online lesson because I've already done this preparation work. All my students have all their tracks and in all of their folders, whether they see me in person or not, because the idea too is that hopefully they're using that in their practice at home, so that if they say, hey, Miss Melissa, had a thing, can I see you on Zoom tonight instead of coming in person? Cool. We're ready to go. We're ready to go. So I will say that I'm a more flexible teacher in my teaching approach, but that there are also some things that I know people can do, right? When I have a student say, oh, I'm not sure I can try this, I know it's possible, right? Because I've seen it done. I've seen it done with my other students. There was something else I was going to mention. I think that was the bulk of it, but needless to say, I'm a better teacher today. I can tell you, I'm a better coach today, having gone through the last year. I know that you can say with confidence too. I hope you can say that with confidence. I haven't met a teacher who hasn't, I mean, whether you are in a public school classroom or whether you have a private studio, I know we've been under the fire, right? Yes, Lee, instructional video has definitely been a huge asset. Yes, absolutely. So there is a little bit more work and prep involved, right? To make it happen. And I saw something from a colleague, Miss Fiona. If you see this later on, she's amazing. I love what she was taught. She was actually encouraging teachers in their tuition, the way they do tuition, whether they do, lesson by lesson or monthly tuition. And I love what she said about, it was something that, and Fiona, if you see this, quote me, correct me if I'm wrong. The gist of her message was the fact that we are now accessible to anyone in the world if we want to be. they can find us, right? They can see our stuff on social, they can find our rates, they can find what we do, and they have access to us if they want to book a lesson, which makes you, the teacher, way more valuable, right? Than if you are only seeing local students. And if that's what you do, and you know that's what you want to do, awesome. But for those of us that definitely are remaining, if online teaching is now part of your services full time, in addition to in-studio, in-person teaching, yeah, your value, your rates, yeah, you're worth it. You are worth it because you are accessible to anyone all over the world if you want. So I hope you were encouraged. My fingers are crossed that the first 15 minutes of this you could actually listen to. And so I will go back and check. And if that was all muted, I will go back and redo a part 1. But I hope that you find encouragement in this and that you feel empowered in this. If you are a teacher who has suffered great loss, either in your business, in your studio, in your student body, maybe personally too, and you've had to say, this is the year that forced me to take a break or to reevaluate my practices, just know that I am cheering you on, and that it is not, nothing has been wasted, right? Nothing has been wasted. And I hope that you start seeing the new life, the purpose in those challenges and in what you've gone through. And I hope that you are starting to see the other side and starting to experience, what it is that you set out to do, whether it's revamping your teacher practice, revamping what you do even, right? I know so many of my artist friends who were performing full time when theater shut down. They've tapped into their teaching side again, right? As a means to not only make a living, but also to continue using their gifts and abilities in that way too. So thank you again for joining me for this live. I will probably do another one, or I'll do a YouTube or something, just kind of talking about my journey, how I did become a voice teacher, and how it all started. So let me know if you'd love to get a little piece of that. I might share it anyway. And I hope that you guys have a wonderful day, evening, morning, whenever you're watching this.